How's it going, sports fans? I hope everybody is having a fantastic week so far. I know it's only Tuesday, but if you are anything like me or a sports fan in general, then this is a great week because sports are really kind of back. We've got the NHL heading up to the hub cities, already getting ready to do exhibition games. Penguins versus Flyers is taking place right now. And then today was the day that football basically returned. You saw plenty of stuff on social media, I'm sure, of coaches, QB1s, and rookies walking up to the facilities, masked up, ready for some training camp action. So, of course, we're going to kick off with NFL per usual. Now, we had the pleasure and the opportunity to chat it up with head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks, Bruce Arians, in a press conference call earlier today, and just kind of pick his brain, obviously, with everything going on. We are in some crazy times, and there's so much conversation taking place as to whether the 2020 NFL season can actually start and finish. We know that the MLB is having a lot of struggle in that department, so of course, why not pour the question into other sports? Now, when we ask Coach Arians, where is his comfort level in terms of returning, in terms of going through a training camp and preparing for the 2020 season, he said he's actually very comfortable with the protocols, more comfortable than people realize. He's like, there's a lot of procedures in play here to where as long as everybody does their job and abides by these protocols and procedures, we should be fine. Aside from the unforeseeable of, the asymptomatic people that could be walking around and being a carrier of this right now. Other than that, if everyone does their job, we should be good. He's comfortable wearing the mask or adjusting, as he said earlier, and he actually plans to wear the mask and a shield when he is on the field with the guys. He, wants to do his part because you don't know how much interaction you're really doing out there until the end of a practice where you're like, geez, I had to go slap this guy on the back, talk to this guy in his face by his helmet. So coach plans on wearing not only the mask, but the shield. Now, come on, it's the Tampa Bay Bucks. It wouldn't be the Bucks nowadays without 150 questions about Tom Brady and the awe of Brady, the awe of Brady effect, as we like to call it nowadays. Now, he said that Brady is actually acclimatized very, very well. Of course, he's a very bright guy, and in a press conference months ago now, which is so crazy to even say, in a press conference months ago with Tom Brady, we heard him say that he's a logistics guy, which means he took that pause. Not that there was particularly a pause from football, but they didn't have normal OTAs. They're not having a normal transition into training camp. But he took this time that was very virtual to dig in a little deeper, to really focus on that playbook. He's already a logistic guy, but now he had a chance to take it a notch further. So Coach Arians said earlier today that it obviously shows. It's very obvious. Now, somebody did have to ask, what's it like for the players in your locker room to have Tom Brady as, a teammate? It's a real thing now. Like, they're going to be in the locker room with him. It's not just going to be a Zoom phone call or anything else. Like, they're going to be there in person with him. And he goes, you know what? For some of the younger guys, yeah, the Brady awe effect is still there, but he thinks that it'll wear off in about a week, hopefully, because these guys have things to do. And you have more important matters at hand than the fact that Tom Brady is your teammate. Be his friend, move forward. Now, a great question that came to mind is, what position is going to be affected the most with the way that training camp is now being operated? No preseason games will be happening, and hopefully the 2020 NFL season will be starting on time. He said he's more concerned about the lines, O-line and D-line, because it's really hard to work on pad levels and, other intricate things that details in that position that they're not going to have the time or those games, preseason games, to really work on and make sure that they're there, or, be able to have those notes to say, hey, this is how much more deeper you have to get into this or figure this out. Now, aside from the O-line and the D-line, we know that the biggest, imposition that this places on players is the rookies. They've had a very weird way to join a team, to the fact that they couldn't even start getting to know their teammates besides a virtual connection. And even though guys were holding workouts throughout the summer in small groups and stuff, you pay attention to the guys in those pictures or the teammates that we're collecting together. They're more so some of the vets or the older guys who are familiar with one another, or the people that you already know from the get-go that you're going to be relying on that field. But you haven't built that connection with a rookie or, a free agent or an underdog per se to say, hey, come join me in this tiny group of people to work out and let me see what you've got. That wasn't really the opportunity presented in these small workouts. So we'll see what takes place with the offensive line as well as the defensive line, the rookies, and the free agents. Now, in terms of getting through the whole season, Coach Arians kept it really simple. Guys have to be smart, they have to be safe, and they have to be disciplined. It's going to take a lot of discipline to go through a season, isolated. There's no realistic capabilities to having a bubble right now, so the guys have to be disciplined. He said that's the biggest amount of advice that he can give to his players right now is, if you want to play, then this is what you have to do. He doesn't think that any players or staff members are going to get sick while being at the facilities. He really has confidence in the procedures in play. He says if they're going to catch COVID, it's going to be because they're doing things outside of the facilities that they shouldn't be doing. This isn't the time to go out to eat. This isn't the time to go to bars. You need to go from the facility to home, from home to the facility. And if you want to have people over, bring them to your house and make sure that they're not being reckless either. So I totally agree. If anybody's learning anything during COVID-19 right now and this whole resurge of it is that we're not research, not that it ever died down, but the whole spike in second wave is that it does take a lot of discipline to make the right decision to, realize, hey, everybody's in the middle of this right now. Is it really that important to do X, Y, and Z? Now, as we move further in, one question that I will have for Coach Arians coming up in the next press conference call is I really want to know, how is this approach to training camp with COVID-19 in play going to change his analyzing of the roster and the roster cut down? I also want to know if this is going to affect the guys the underdogs, or the guys who could bring that one unique asset to a team, that value, but you don't see that until they get that prime play, that clutch play in a preseason game. None of those things are being eliminated. Those guys are going to either, continue to fly so low under the radar, or is this going to be the season that underdogs really show up and show off, or are teams just going to automatically rely on their vets to carry the season through? Let me know you guys' feedback on this, because I can't wait to ask Coach Arians this question, let alone I can't wait to really get a little further into training camp and see what starts playing out. Will underdogs have a fair chance, or is it all going to reside on the vets of the NFL teams? Now, talking of the NFL further and the NFLPA, we know that they were having some struggles in terms of the agreements on how to actually make a safe training camp happen in a realistic 2020 NFL season. So far, conversations seem to continue progressing in the right direction, them being on the same page. But a lot of questions right now is, why did the NFL never consider a bubble? I think it's a simple answer, if I'm being honest. The answer being, there's nearly 120 plus people per team. That's too much to relocate to do hubs. With the NHL, they were able to put everybody in 2 cities. MLB clearly didn't do a bubble system because they have too many teams, including players, and minor leagues. They had to cut the minors. Anybody who was able to do hub cities, their rosters are very tight and very small, and the NFL is just not that. So I think it was just too much. And realistically, if they tried to relocate that many people to create hub cities or bubbles in multiple cities, I think you're almost putting people more at risk, because you can manage your facility better than you can 3, 4, 5 teams in one area and hope that everybody's on the same page of the keyword now being discipline. So I kind of think that's where the bubble got ruled out. Now, as for players who will be opting out of the 2020 season, only a few names have risen to the surface. For the most part, there's guys just still contemplating it. They want to see how training camp is actually going to play out before they make that firm decision to say, I will not be playing this coming season. Now, one person that went ahead and made that decision is defensive lineman Eddie Goldman for the Chicago Bears, which I had to take a deep breath there. The Chicago Bears are in such a rebuilding mode. They kind of need every key player they can get, and Goldman is one of them. With 29 tackles and 1 sack and 15 starts for the Bears last season, yeah, you're talking about a guy that you really need out there. Who they might pull up from free agency, who knows? The talks haven't only begun yet, but we do know that he's opting out. We know that most guys who are on the fence about whether they will or will not play, they have, families and small children at home. So, of course, it's not about them, or, it's not so much their fear of COVID-19. It's more so what they can do when they leave those facilities and go home to their families, and how susceptible it'll be to their, small babies. So, hopefully not too many more key players, but, like I kind of said earlier, what will this mean if more key players start opting out? Where will the responsibility of, the results of this season and how far the season will go, where will that lie, on the vets? Will underdogs get a fair shot, or will they be ruled out because there's just not enough time to realistically evaluate them? Make sure you let us know your thoughts in our messages or DMs and messages are the same thing, our DMs or our comments. Let us know where you guys' heads are with that. Stick with us as we head to a quick commercial break and we break down some NBA and NHL.
Mercury agents everywhere are saving people hundreds and are also there to help save the day.
That was fast.
You covered.
Thanks, agents.
Watch out!
That's my car!
Don't worry, we're here to help.
For savings and service above the rest, you can count on Mercury. We're on a mission to save you money.
Mercury. All right, guys, welcome back. So just a couple quick updates when it comes to the NBA. We know that so far things are looking good in the bubble. I think guys have gotten more acclimated, more situated, more comfortable with, what their life's going to look like for the next few months. Now, aside from there thankfully being no drama or not much drama in the bubble, Kyrie Irving commits $1.5 million to WNBA players who are opting out of their season, obviously, because it's just not fitting to try to take the risk during COVID-19. And lastly, in our NBA news, Orlando Magic's Isaac returns from his knee injury, which hopes to put the Magic in a more promising position when it comes to games. Now, as we move on to the NHL, you guys heard me mention earlier in the segment or the top of the segment that we have so much to be excited about when it comes to this week, because not only is football back and NHL has been back in terms of them doing their training camp, but they're back. We're talking turn on NBC Sports and you get to watch hockey, live hockey on TV. I am so excited. There's a game on currently, obviously. Now, the teams have headed off to the hub cities, clearly Toronto and Edmonton. During phase 3, the brilliant news right here is that between July 18th and July 25th, among 4,526 COVID-19 tests that were administered, 800 plus players tested no positive tests. That's big news for how many guys have been in contact with one another, because we know what it takes to, conduct a full hockey session for even practicing training camp scrimmages. The blue and white game that the Tampa Bay Lightning held twice. It's a lot of contact. So that's great news in terms of, how well the guys have been handling themselves when they leave the facilities, and how important getting through this season safely is for every individual, because again, it's not just about one person. Whenever you're coming in contact with anybody else, it's about a bigger picture. It's about anybody and everybody that you can affect by making just dumb decisions for no reason. We can't be selfish right now. We have to be selfless. So, great job, guys, in the NHL. Now, for all 52 members of the 24 teams, players and coaches will be tested daily, which will be fantastic, because then they can catch it early enough to make sure if guys need to be quarantined or not before any games. Now, as we mentioned, the guys headed off to the hub cities on Sunday, July 26th. Amongst the Lightning players that did not go up with the guys is Victor Hedman, and he's going to join them later. He couldn't go right away due to personal matters. Now, we got to catch up with Coach Cooper and some of the guys during press conference calls throughout the entire week. But before the guys left on Sunday, of course, Coach Cooper let us in on some of the things that had him in hopeful strides of where this playoff season will go. So for the most part, we know that Coop is very good at being a player's coach. He pays attention to where the guys are at, how quickly to move them along so that there's no injuries out there for no reason, and people get a chance to really build off chemistry and learn from their mistakes, grow and see, where they need to tweak things here and there. So things started off very lightly, but he kept drills at a high tempo so that the guys can transition easily as they get into more intense practices. Now, day 3 of training camp, the guys had a small scrimmage, the first one since the initial pause over 100 and some odd days ago. And he saw a lot of really good things there. He was seeing how well the guys were moving the puck. He was seeing the guys talking more. But the biggest thing was the chemistry that he was seeing on the ice. We know that there was about 3 new additions added to the Lightning towards the end of this season. And it takes a minute to get situated and find your footing in a different system when you fly somewhere overnight and just start a whole new life. The NHL happens extremely quick when it comes to transitioning. So for Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow and Zach Bogason, those 3 guys, they needed that time ended up being very beneficial to them, the pause. Coach Cooper said it, Coleman said it, all the new guys said it, that actually gave them a minute, even though they weren't able to hit the ice with their new teammates and get acclimated that way. That personal connection, being on those calls with one another, the group chats and everything like that, they started to feel like they knew their teammates more and to build a friendship. Bogason had a bit of an advantage because he knew a couple of the guys from previous seasons beforehand. The biggest question when it came to Zach joining the team was, he hasn't played in a while, so what is his play going to look like when he finally does get back on the ice? And he's fitting in there well. He gets to play in the back, paired up with Victor Hedman, who has a unique style to his defensive playing on the ice. And he said, he really admires Hedman's style, and you learn a lot from him. I stay out of his way when he's moving quick out there, and I've just learned how to read him. And so far, it's been a promising duo in the back of the ice there. Now, for further information, we know that the guys' biggest thing that they had to work on in terms of not playing against themselves was when it came to those special team units. They relied very heavily on Steven Stamkos when it comes to power plays, and, their defense was doing decent, but they were playing a little far back against very skilled teams, which was giving them an advantage to get ahead on the ice and score. Now, we have an amazing goalie, but we cannot wear him out, especially before playoffs, so that pause really did come in handy. So as for things the Lightning are working and focusing on, is continuing to build that chemistry, to be able to read each other, working on those special team units, and, finding a powerful power play unit that doesn't always include Steven Stamkos, who we know is working through an injury right now. Now, Cooper said that things are looking promising. In the first little scrimmage the guys had, he played about 45 minutes, which is a good look. He would love for Stamkos to get into one of the exhibition games, but more importantly, a Red Robin game if he can and if his body is ready. The only thing working against him right now is the right timetable to make sure he gets enough rest. Now, if he's ready, coach says that a Red Robin game would be perfect so that he gets meaningful playing time under his belt before really, really diving into that next leg of playoffs. Now, one of the fun things is that we know that exhibition games have begun, and games are going to be very different for the NHL. They are going to have giant projector screens throughout the arena that'll have, what's the word I'm looking for? That'll have Hall of Fame hockey players from the past and all kinds of different things playing on those projector screens and kind of being that noise that the guys look forward to and that encouragement. The fun part, which I hope is not going to be a distraction or awkward, but we saw some weird things during training camp with the Tampa Bay Lightning, is there will now be cutouts. And the guys got a little bit of practice playing with a cutout because there was a giant cutout of Pat Maroon's face in the Tampa Bay Lightning arena during the blue and white game. And the guys seemed to love it. And it was actually Shattenkirk that put that one together and got that out there on the ice. So far, the guys say that they're looking forward to it regardless of the fans not being there. And Cooper says that it might be a bit of an advantage seeing as how it's so loud with fans that sometimes that creates a miscommunication. So now guys are going to be able to hear each other quite clearly. But will that be an advantage or a disadvantage? Because that means the other team is going to hear you quite clearly too. Let us know you guys' thoughts on what the real effect may be with no fans in the stands. Now for the MLB, I mentioned briefly that the drama returns because the Miami Marlins had to cancel their home opener due to too many positive COVID cases. That's not the only team that's ramping up with COVID-19, but of course it's kind of inevitable depending on what these players are doing. And I love the keyword that Coach Arians used. If they lack discipline, if they're putting themselves in position to be at risk, then they're around their other teammates because they want to hang out, and now we're spreading it. What does this mean for the remainder of the baseball season? We do not know. There hasn't been much statements released. As of now, we just know that if there's too many cases, the games are being canceled until guys are quarantined and testing negative for COVID-19. Stick with us as we go to another quick commercial break, and then we break down some soccer.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, as the MLS tournament continues, we know so far they're doing pretty well at containing the COVID-19 cases that were coming positive. Guys have been had to put aside for quarantine. And so far, the guys who have had to go through quarantine have come back with negative results. They're feeling up to par and they're ready to hit the pitch. Now, unfortunate news is that Orlando City's Dom Doyer is out for the remainder of the tournament because he had to exit the bubble to get an MRI on his knee, which we haven't heard confirmed news as to what may have taken place in the knee, but we know that he is back home with his family. And it was just a little much to kind of rush him back into the bubble, have him do the 14-day quarantine protocol and make it for the end of, because everything wraps up August 1st, actually, so he wouldn't have had enough time. So that's why he had to opt out of the rest of the tournament and just kick it at home with the fam. Now, as for the MLS results started on Sunday, Toronto FC fell to NYCFC. Then we have Sporting KC beating Vancouver. Well, they actually got the leg up, but it was a draw 0-0. And then yesterday, San Jose whooped Real Salt Lake 5-2. Seattle Sounders fell short to LAFC 1-4. And then today we have Columbus versus Minnesota right now as we speak. And tonight it's Portland versus Cincinnati. Now, the one thing I will say, if you guys want to pay attention to any team, because, I mean, why not? Orlando City is crushing it, and I'm proud of them for getting as far as they are moving along. We know International Miami is very new, and David Beckham took to social media to defend his team and say, hey, we will be legendary at the end of all of this. But LAFC, they've really, really put together a skilled team. I mean, I thought that they were going to end up being in the championship this past year. We know that Seattle Sounders ended up taking that one, but this year is looking very promising for LAFC, and I wouldn't be shocked if anyone saw me jump on that bandwagon. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. I hope everybody has a fantastic remainder of their week because, like I said, sports are back. There's going to be so much stuff on social media seeing the guys return to the facilities, and they're doing it in position layers. And then we have hockey. Don't make sure you do not miss watching the Tampa Bay Lightning and supporting them tomorrow at noon as they face off versus the Florida Panthers. Stay safe, stay sane, stay kind, stay compassionate, and wear your mask. We'll have so many better updates for you guys coming this Friday at 8 p.m. because now we've got some stuff to break down. Make sure you tune in with us Friday at 8 p.m.